everybody, welcome back to the Resilient Purpose Podcast. Today I am with Janice, and Janice and I are going to be talking about stress and more on a personal nature of kind of like how we deal with stress. And I know you're thinking, you're going to tell us about all the great ways that we deal with stress, and that's actually quite the opposite. So today we're going to actually talk about kind of how we struggle with stress, just like all the people that we work with. So I think it's an important conversation because I think it's important for everybody to recognize that we're all kind of struggling and that this isn't an easy time. But it's important that we talk about these things. So hope you guys will enjoy. Take a look. There are those moments that you just stop taking care of yourself. That's a clear sign. You just kind of like, people can kind of like see it, right? Like you can see.
What are my tells when I walk into the office that you're like, oh, she is unwell?
You don't want to talk. You just kind of like, don't look at me, I don't want to have any part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think that's probably very true.
I feel like I am the most unwell when I am wearing an elastic waistband to work. When I'm wearing either my scrub pants or leggings with like a straight up, like I didn't even try, like I just put on a hoodie and leggings, like I am trying my very, very best to just get through the day.
Right.
Don't anybody mess with me.
I'm doing my best. Yeah, I like to be comfy at all times, even when I'm not stressed. So that's not a sign for me, but like when I quickly kind of make excuses to not do things that I need to do. So like, I need to shave. It'll be all right. I can shave Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can go do this particular thing. Oh, I mean, it happened. I haven't worked out in a while, so that's a sign that like you kind of don't do the things. It's weird. You don't do the things that are good for you.
Mm-hmm. That's been the theme of my last 2.5 weeks. Like the time changed and everything just went to hell in a handbasket real quick. Like I was doing really well about exercising regularly, regulating my breath. That immediately stopped because I hate running on a treadmill. I much prefer to run outside. It's a different experience where it's just a different experience, and I couldn't get it. So Friday, I looked at Derek and I was like, I'm leaving. I'm going home and I'm running till I don't have feelings anymore. Take a feelings run. They're doing really good about them being proactive, but I had to go take a feelings run on Friday, and I just ran a real quick 5K, just real quick.
A real quick 5K. That's just
real quick 5K, and I was like, oh my gosh, so much better. And then immediately afterwards, my face just completely filled up with mucus. So I spent the whole weekend also I could feel it coming because my body is very, very sensitive to my stress levels. If I am stressed and if I am not taking care of myself, I will become outwardly ill.
Mm-hmm.
That's why my throat was just closed for a whole week because I was not taking care of myself. My body was like, I will create the condition that you have to then sit down if you won't listen to reason.
Right. The more stressed you are, the more sick you're going to get. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I've had those moments where you're just not taking care of yourself, and so you start getting colds easily. You're just feel like crud.
Yeah.
Your body is trying to figure it out, but it can't keep up.
Yeah, and I know we have the holidays coming up. Thanksgiving is Thursday, but the holidays for me they're not a stressful time the way that everybody else talks about the holidays being stressful. It's stressful in different ways for me. So I think other people get stressed about having to be around their family, having to see their family.
Sure.
That's very overwhelming for some people. That's not really the case with me. My family, we make up reasons to spend time together, our family throughout the year. So it's not that's stressful for me. What's stressful for me is the increased pressure to be social and happy and engaged, and that is extremely taxing for me as a person. There's a reason why I come to work, I do my job, I go home, I said I don't talk to anybody, I'm not calling anybody, I'm not texting anybody. I don't want to have any more interaction with people. It takes so much for my brain to stay focused and energized and not shut down. that having people around that, and then the other thing, my parents ask me up to dinner all the time, or like when their friends are in town, I'm like, hey, like, no, I don't, I'm sorry, I don't want to go out to dinner, because the first question everybody asks me is, how's work? I don't want to talk about it. Like, I would prefer not to talk about it when I'm not on the clock.
Right.
And so being asked that question again and again and again and again,
Because that's
over
that's part of our lives, right? That's how we kind of learn about you and catch up and
everybody that's like, so how's your day? I was like, listen, I'm breathing, I'm alive, it's a day, and the only way out is through. So just nobody ask me questions, because I don't want to talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I can't remember what it was. It was this weekend that I was being real lazy and I was just laying around and I wasn't want to do anything. And then I got up and I did something really physical, like really like, I don't know, I might have skipped around the house with the kids or got up and moved stuff, you know, picked up heavy things, put them down, and like, oh, that felt really good. And then, you know, just don't do that enough, you know, and like I could so relate to kind of like just bathing in kind of your misery or your suffering or like I know that if I do these things, if I just push myself to get up off the couch to go do something, I don't know. Sometimes it's because like typically those things that I have to do are responsibility things, and I'm just like, you know, that's at that point I'm like, I don't want to do responsibilities. I just want to be, you know, I do that all the time. Like, can't somebody just do it for me?
And I feel like part of it for me, like the stuff that I know I should do, I get resistant to doing it in the moment, because there's so many responsibilities and things that we have to do as a part of our jobs that we would prefer not to have to do. So
all the time.
When I have time that's not work, when I'm off the clock, I don't want to do it because I know I should. I want to do it because I want to. And so that's the other thing. And there was a while, maybe like a year and a half ago, where motivation was just like, who is that? Don't know her. Can't find it. If it was the broadside of a freaking barn. And I looked up the definition for motivation. And everybody talks about motivation like it's a feeling, like it's an emotion, like it's something internal. But there's another definition of the word motivation, and I can't remember it word for word right now. But essentially, it just means like the creation of a habit, following through with something. Like, I don't have to want to do the thing to be motivated to do the thing. And it really changed my perspective. So instead of sitting around waiting for my emotional experience of my day to get on the same page with like the practicality of my day, I can just make a decision that these are the things that I'm going to do today, and I will choose to be motivated to do them. Like, I don't have to wait for a feel. And I think that's the past couple weeks dealing with stress has been, and there's been a couple instances where I believe in a higher power, call that higher power God, but where I feel like God has really been trying to open my eyes to just how out of sync I am. I was flipping through some literature one day and I came across this reading, and it was completely by happenstance, and it said something to the effect of when there are times of crisis or high stress, we have to be at our best. And the only way for us to be at our best is if we are doing the basics very well. If we are eating, if we are drinking water, if we are getting exercise, if we are sleeping, if we are taking time to, like, the only way we can be good or worth anything in times of crisis or stress is if we are doing all of the things regularly that regularly help us be good. Like, we can't be great. And it just reminds me of all the time I would bring it up when I was running groups, when we were talking about relapse prevention planning specifically. Like, what are you going to do when you run into your drug dealer, or like somebody that used to get high with at 7-Eleven, and they're like, oh, well, I'll just walk away. I'm like, how much practice do you have doing that?
Right.
And they're like, well, I don't know, but I mean, I really am committed to my
do
sobriety.
Do they let you walk away?
Yeah, I'm committed to my sobriety. I don't have a desire to use drugs. I'll be fine. I'm like, listen, We never rise to the occasion. We always default to our training. So if we are not training ourselves to be well, when a crisis comes, we may be able to step up in short little bursts, enough to get things done. But you can't do that for a continued amount of time. Like, our brains are just, there's only so much like dopamine and serotonin and like until you just fry the motherboard.
Is the pathway for recovery stronger than the pathway for use? Will this idea, like when I'm talking with you and going, oh, recovery is such a wonderful idea and I love it, but then when I need it the most, is that voice going to scream louder than the voice that says, oh no, you should probably use that'd probably be better for you?
Yeah, and like in terms of like anybody who listens to this, like, we have our brains default to what they know, not what's good for them. So if what I know is dissociating and like absorbing media and not really like using my physical body, putting all of my needs as a human being second to what feels good or what I want to do instead of what I should be doing, when times of crisis or stress come, that's the path that my brain is going to go down. That's where I've been at for the last couple of weeks. I feel like Kaylee and I have been talking about it. COVID really, I think, in the moment, like, we all knew that there was like a seismic shift happening under our feet.
Yeah.
But for the time when we had to get through it, we were okay. You know what I mean? Like, we were okay. But now it's been over a year and a half. It still feels like plates are shifting underneath our feet sometimes. And even when they're not, like, we're now getting like the reverb from what we've been through for the last 18 months. That constant like spurts of like...
There's that unpredictability. You never know when the next shoe's gonna drop. And so like you start getting comfortable. Like, oh, I got this, man. I'm vaccinated. I'm going out. Everything's great. And then all of a sudden, something's gonna pop on the news, and it's gonna be like, well, Delta variant, Sigma something is in the world, and now none of the vaccines. You just get all this like, you just keep hitting. There's not a long path of smooth road, which I guess has always been true, but now it just feels like the path is so small. Like, you can go like a week and then something else happens, and I think that's kind of where stress gets to me, is like, it's like you work through one problem. Like, I don't mind working through stress. I think that's healthy and that's good for me, and I think it's good for our agency and things like that. But it's like, okay, just when you start getting comfortable with getting through that particular stressful problem, another one hits you, and then another one hits you, and then it's like, oh, great, okay, this happens. Or
which, like, at the beginning of the pandemic, when I still think back to when Derek says, oh, they're going to shut down schools, and I said, you're crazy, sir. And then literally 2 weeks later, kids were being sent home from school. Like, at that point, like, the decisions being made, the kind of shoes that were dropping at the time were much larger, but for some reason they seemed easier to manage because we hadn't been managing shoes falling out of the sky at a pattern that we did not know what it was going to be already.
Well, I think some of those decisions didn't really impact my stress level until like when they shut things down. It was like, yeah, that's crazy, but we were like, okay, we're not feeling the pain yet, and then we're feeling, and then we get like, we talk to people that are working from home going, I hate working from home. Like, I need to come back. And so over time, I kind of think of that. There's a video of a guy like holding a glass of water and asking how heavy it is. Yeah. And it depends on how long you hold it. And so if in the beginning it's not that heavy, but then 30 minutes, an hour, a week, it becomes really heavy, and you start to kind of be overwhelmed. And so, how long do we stay holding that glass of water? Do we give ourselves kind of breaks and recovery and that type of thing? And so that's unfortunately what happens, and it happens with us, and it happens with people we work with, is we don't have a lot of times that it's so hard to create a habit of health, right? you know, we brushed our teeth from as early as a little kid, so most of us brush our teeth to a certain extent, but we didn't, as early young kids, go work out, you know, or go eat healthy foods or whatever. So now we're trying to like create these habits to like survive and get through everything, and it's hard.
And like the uncertainty of the demands on time is the hardest for me to deal with. Like I can have my calendar set out for the day. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to accomplish. And then halfway through the day, there's an email that comes in or a voicemail somewhere. And then the rest of the day doesn't matter because this is now the highest priority thing. And so then nothing ever gets done, but I never get to stop adding things to the to-do list. And having a to-do list that's 2 years long because something more important, higher priority keeps coming up is not really a recipe for mental wellness for me.
Right.
And like, but there's also like, what is there to do about it?
You have the glass of water and your stress levels, and then we pour in more water, and then it gets to the top of the cup, and so then they switch the cup to be much bigger and just keep adding water, and you're not taking away the water.
Yeah, and there's a lot of but I feel like there's a lot of people that feel the way, especially, you know, I don't have children because that's just a choice that I'm making for myself, but watching parents, especially working parents, especially working single parents, this last year and a half, almost 2 years, has just been like, I cannot fathom how, if I feel the way that I feel with my to-do list constantly growing and always getting added to and things that are important always dropping to the bottom, like I cannot imagine how people with tiny humans have dealt with the last year and a half to 2 years.
You know, if people say that the parenting is easy, they're either lying or they are super well resourced. And what I mean by that is they have a million people that want to take their kids off their hands for a while. They can go out on date nights and they can go, you know, something happens and you need somebody to watch your kid, you know, so you get like lots of kind of breaks and you know, that type of thing. But if you're like a single parent with multiple kids and very few resources, and then we get mad at the parent because their kid is behaving problematically, like you're not being very like empathetic to that parent. Like, because parenting is hard for anybody because kids are, I mean, it's just, especially in this kind of world, you know, so I just, that's kind of like it's so easy for us as a society. And I think sometimes we can kind of get caught up in it, is just get really mad at the parents and blame the parents. But like we lose sight of like how truly challenging it is.
I have never been so sure that becoming a parent is something that I do not want for myself, as crystal clear as it has been in the last 6 months. Knowing what I have mentally been through in the past year and a half and the toll that it's taken on me and the good and bad ways that I was dealing with that, I cannot imagine adding something as precious and important and overwhelming as parenthood to the mix. And I think that, you know, millennials get the short end of the stick, or whatever that analogy is. I'm like, oh, we're ruining the housing market because we're not buying houses, and we're spending all of our money on avocado toast and Starbucks, and we're not having kids, and we're not doing this and that. And it's like, no, we're not, because watching the people who raised us, it just does not seem like a good time. It does not seem like a good time. And this is something that we can control. I can control whether or not I bring that particular stress into my life.
Right.
I can't control what email's going to come next. I can't control, you know, what issue like a staff person or somebody in my personal life is going to have. I can control that.
Sure.
And so as the thing I can control, that is the thing that I should be giving my attention and energy to, not all of the things that I can't control. Like, we can only control what we can control, so don't waste your energy on the things that you can't. Focus on the things that you can. And I can't wait to see like articles and everything in like 20 years talking about like how millennials are when we are the age of like boomers that we are being compared to, and like what is our happiness going to look like, what is our life satisfaction going to look like, because right now straight up none of us are having a good time. None of us are having a good time. So I see there's this girl that I follow on TikTok, and she's like, honestly, I would love to be living in precedented times. I would love to go back to living in precedented times. I would love to have emails that don't start with, hope you're doing well in these unprecedented times.
Right.
We were so close, and then it was just stolen from us, you know?
Right.
And it's hard to do what's good for you, but like brain science tells us that it's hard to do what's good for you if what's good for you isn't what you do.
Right. Well, I think that we get really overwhelmed at the magnitude of what's going on. So, like, it looks so daunting to try to accomplish. Like, I've been getting into this kick about like focus, and I've gotten into this kick various times in my career, but focusing on the process, not the product. And I think that's a lot of where our mind goes. Like, I want to be able to think about what life would be like without COVID, or I want to think about life with, all this type of stuff gone, and we don't focus on the here and now, the right now, these little moments that we can create. Regardless of like how stressful things, there's been some really fantastic, awesome things that have happened in my life over the last several weeks, just things that my kids were able to do and things that we were able to do as a family and stuff like that. And unfortunately, our brain doesn't really focus on those things. We focus on all the bad that's going on. We focus on the state of whatever, and we don't think about, okay, there were these really nice little things that have happened. They didn't last forever, but they were still really good things. And those were experiences where I felt really good and really positive, but my, your brain tends to focus more on the times that you're really struggling. I was thinking of the word about precedented, like I want to be able to like live in a world where if like I get sniffles like that, it's just sniffles. Like I could be like, it'll be all right. Like, it's like now it's like you cough and everybody's like, what? What did you do?
It's not as bad as it was last spring though, thank goodness. I remember, because like I have really bad allergies, and so I was in the middle, like the trees were pollinating or something, and I had to go into the grocery store, and of course like I had my mask on, and I was like 6 feet from everybody, and I was just like trying not to breathe, because like to breathe in through my nose was going to trigger a sneeze, and I like sneezed or coughed or something in the store, and everybody like, what are you doing in public?
We went to the movie, Clifford the Big Red Dog. Good movie. Go see Clifford the Big Red Dog. It was really fun. So, the theater in Parkersburg has got like the really big comfy seats and you can recline, and there was this lady with her little child who, by the way, I swear was in the wall trying to play with the electrical sockets while the movie was playing, and the mom's just sitting, I don't know if she was really into like Clifford or whatever, but it was really crazy. But also about halfway, maybe 3/4 into the movie, you go, she starts coughing like crazy, and all of us are like,
yeah,
and then we're throwing on our mask and we're like, oh my gosh, like what are you doing, like, and we're like, are we okay, like are we safe, like, it just, your mind just goes there. She probably choked on a popcorn kernel and coughed, but we're just like, yikes.
Yeah, there's such basic things that we need, and I think the thing that we can't control is that need for predictability. Like we really never have been able to control that. But it feels like the last year and a half, everybody's really kind of like accepted and like let go the idea that like we can predict the things that are going to happen to us in our life.
You can't predict what's going to happen out in the world. Like I couldn't possibly fathom some of the decisions that were made in society over the last couple of weeks that just don't make any sense to me. So definitely don't try to like predict. But I believe you can make things in your life more predictable. Like you can do things like just, in attempts to try and create the habit, creating more things that are predictable. If you're, I think, just even thinking about like, if you watch, before, when I was a kid, watching the news was awful, right? Because it's all bad. So like but at least the news only came on at certain points of time. Now you're like, you have so much accessibility to that information that, that makes things unpredictable because you don't know what you're going to see. You don't know what news is out there. Like, I mean, a friend of mine from high school passed away yesterday or this weekend, and also turn on your social media and boom, there it is, like right in front of your face. And now you're dealing with grief, and and you're just like, holy cow, like wherever you turn, you just can't escape it. So like, I think it's more important that like we have to make a concerted effort to do things that are good for our brain and our body. We have to be really almost systematic and structured with it, because
and for me,
there's so much unpredictability.
Those things are very simple for me. If I don't drink a certain amount of water, if I don't eat food at certain intervals, if I don't go to bed at the same time and wake up at relatively the same time, everything is off. Like the way that, we talked about like being well-resourced as a parent, being well-resourced as a person doesn't really require a whole lot from the outside. It doesn't have to.
Okay.
It doesn't have to. But like, pay attention to how much water are you drinking versus how much caffeine are you drinking? Are you eating any food at regular intervals?
Right.
Are you stabilizing, your blood sugar and everything else, all of those internal processes, like your body's constantly doing that instead of going into starvation mode and shutting your energy down? Are you getting outside for like even 10 minutes a day for some natural vitamin D? Like there are some real basic things that you can do for yourself as a person that help you be better at stress, that don't require anything.
There's actually a research, a guy named Andrew Huberman is like a neuroscientist at Stanford, and he was citing a bunch of research about like, first thing we should do is just go outside and get that light, the light from the sun, and now of course, because it's daylight savings time, it's bright pretty early, but like walk right out, get outside. Probably doesn't hurt to have that fresh, cold air. But also just kind of have that bright light that does good. That kind of like resets our system, and, so we're not like carrying over kind of the crap from the previous day. It kind of resets your system, resets your baselines and things like that. And then just kind of helps you. We get, there's reward for the sun, we get, it does good for our body. So, yeah. That vitamin D and just all that. But you think about a time where you're like on it, like when you're like doing really well about those little things? Is there anything that you do that kind of helps you get there, like, and be successful in that, versus times where you're really struggling? Is there like a missing link or something that you proactively do to try to keep you on target?
I feel like there's a lot of things, but like I always have to, once I get out of sync, once I get away from living in a way that keeps me very like engaged and present, once I get away from that, I have to like slowly build myself back up to the place where I was. I can't wake up the next day and do all of the things that I was doing if I get out of sync. So the first thing, I start with water. I start with just hydrating myself. Hydrate. After I've been doing that successfully for a couple of days, then it moves to, okay, now let's proactively like put things in Tupperwares in the kitchen so that you can grab it and go to work and you can eat regularly. That's number 2. Number 3 then becomes spending less time on my phone. There's things on my phone that I'll always have to, emails, text messages, phone calls, but like the other stuff, like spending hours on YouTube or hours on TikTok, or, like those things that we do, falling down Twitter rabbit holes, like that's the next thing after hydration and food. Then comes the way to get my mental on board with what my physical body is doing, is to get rid of the stuff that distracts me from what needs to be done. Like I take away the stuff that I want to do in favor of the things that I need to do, because my body can handle it, because I'm hydrated, my body is working the way it's supposed to, my brain is working the way that it's supposed to, because I've put enough nutrients in my body that I can get the output that I need from it. And then at that point, I all of a sudden have the mental space and can recognize the time that I actually have in my day, that then I can start putting in things like going on runs, yoga, meditation, journaling. Like that stuff is all last for me. Like water, food, cut down the activities that I use to distract myself out of emotional selfishness because I want to do things. They get cut out next, and then I can do all of the things that therapists typically tell a person to do: meditate, journal. All of those things are a last for me. I can't start with them. I have to end with them.
Yeah. So the stuff that, like the water and the meals and those types of things, that kind of get your mind right. If you don't have that, your mind's not right. And then, so the idea that you would be able to follow through with like the yoga and the running and stuff just doesn't work.
No, never gonna happen. Plus, like, if I'm not putting into my body, I can't expect something out of it.
Your energy is not as, you're trying to build energy, and
I can't not, we talk about like pouring into cups and make sure your cup is full and blah, blah, blah. Like, if I'm never pouring anything into my cup, I can't be surprised when I tip it over because I need something out of it and nothing comes out. Like, it just doesn't make logical sense. Like, energy in, energy out. Calories are energy. So looking at food as fuel instead of something that I can use to make myself feel better or to be happy or to lighten my mood or whatever else, like, food is fuel, but that comes after I'm hydrated, because I live in this consistent land of dehydration and malnutrition because I just don't prioritize eating or drinking water literally ever for myself. I'm like, whatever, like, grab another Monster, there's some crackers somewhere probably, I'm sure, let's just get it moving. No, that's not how any of this works. Because I'm not giving myself the fundamental energy that my body needs to even do the most basic things that I need it to do, let alone to manage the stress and to think creatively and to institute processes that get us to an output. Like, I can't do those things. If I'm not giving my body like the 1 + 1 = 2 of what we're taught our bodies need.
Well, I find it interesting because, like, this happens with like going to the gym. Like, gotta get up. I don't know, not today. And then I'll push myself and I'll go to the gym, and I don't feel good afterwards. Like, I'm glad I came. Or if I drink water, and I feel good. Like I can actually sense a physical change, and so it's like I got to close the gap between getting to the thing that makes me feel good and my mind. The mindset is really important, because if my mind is like, if I'm feeling kind of crappy, so then my mind starts kind of like thinking about all the reasons why I want to stay crappy, instead of, I don't really enjoy feeling crappy, so I'm going to do something that makes myself feel better, but in a like something that is going to be better for me, right? Like, but still feel better, because there's a lot of things I'm sure, like eating that candy bar. Like, we're having potluck today, so I was like looking at all the desserts or whatever. Like you were kind of saying, I don't put food in my body a lot of times in those moments. I put probably too much food in my body, because I like, if it's a pizza, like, I just want to have more and more pizzas.
Yeah, and there's, for me, like, that example of the gym, and do I want to do it? No, but I know that on the other side I feel better. Like, that's for me, like, the like linguistic kind of trick I played on myself in my head about motivation is, I don't have to be motivated to go to the gym. I just have to be motivated to feel better. So whatever it takes for me to feel better, and then I all of a sudden have choices, because I'm not trying to force myself to go to the gym. I want to feel better. So here are all of my choices. I can take a nap. I can dissociate on TikTok for God knows how long. I can order food that is tasty, but not necessarily good for me, not going to do the things that it needs to in my body. I can have another cup of coffee or an energy drink to just trick myself. Or I can look at the other more healthy options they all lead to me feeling better, but in those moments where I'm focused on the outcome, not the act, it allows me to make better, less impulsive, more rational, well thought out choices because I'm not emotionally consumed with my current state. I'm focused on the future. I'm focused on the thing that I want.
Do you walk out like if you go down a TikTok rabbit hole, like 10, 15 minutes of watching whatever, do you walk out going, man, I feel refreshed and I feel great and oh, my world is awesome right now? Or do you just kind of, like I see it as kind of like those types of rabbit holes are very like dissociative in nature. You're just wanting to escape the present moment. You don't want to think about anything meaningful.
Yeah.
Or responsible, whatever. You're just wanting to let your brain kind of go away, which isn't a bad thing, but when you do it for hours on end, it becomes significantly bad. But I can't imagine that people are like, man, when I go down Facebook, it just gives me great feeling of joy and wonderful. No, it's just we are living in this world of just constant stress, and we just want to check out.
YouTube does that for me. YouTube, the newest thing is Brad Mondo. He's a hairstylist. He has this whole playlist where he reacts to the makeover portion of every single season of America's Next Top Model. And there's something about his presence. It's just so funny and bright and light and just I could listen to you talk for hours. So if I watch one of his yes, I generally do feel a little bit better, a little bit more pep in my step, a little bit more optimistic. TikTok is very different because my little goldfish brain that has the attention span of a gnat, it is the perfect format. 3-minute videos on TikTok are too long for me. But saying that, there are a lot of moments that I've had watching TikToks where I'm holy shit. If you didn't just speak to my literal soul. There was one where it said something about that moment when you realize that you don't know how to relax, you just dissociate for hours. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to relax. I literally am 100 miles an hour or full break, full stop, dissociated, completely checked out. I do not know how to relax. Don't know how to do it. It's a skill that I have not learned yet. Mm-hmm. But I know that I can't try to teach myself how to relax when I'm not doing the very basic things like I was talking about before. If I'm allowing myself to constantly be overwhelmed by the emotional situation around me, I am not actually in control of my own outcomes. And the thing that I've had to start doing for myself is I can't think about things, even sometimes in terms of the present moment. I have to think about, okay, so this is where I'm at now. What is the outcome that I want? What is the thing that I want? And then I have to backtrack through it to figure out, okay, what are all of my options about how I get there? Mm-hmm. Because then it takes the pressure off the action, because all of my energy is focused on the outcome, so I don't get as caught up and as rigid in the path that I take to get what I want. It's just, did I accomplish the goal or not? And if I did, then great, yay for me. On to the next thing, so you can move down the to-do list.
Yeah, I can't. I get too caught up. The outcome is or the product is too far away from me. I can't do it. It's too easy for me to just kind of not keep moving forward. Mm-hmm. I need to stay in the present moment. I need to not worry about whether it's okay, I want to lose weight, or I want to just feel stronger, or I just want to whatever. It has to be the here and now. I can't think about that because there's too many ways my brain can kind of push the outcome further and further down the road. Mm-hmm. And so I have to okay, what can I do today? What can I do right now? I get the checklist aspect of it, but I gotta be okay, and then I gotta spend more time kind of appreciating when I do something that feels good. I need to sit with it, because too quickly I'll just let it go by. Mm-hmm. And then I need to spend more time with that, because it's if I don't, then it's too easy for me to get caught back up into my bad habits, the habits that are not really good for me. Mm-hmm. I gotta, and so that's kind of where I gotta find that right now.
Our brains are so different. I can't stay in the present moment, because if I stay in the present moment, it's all I can see and all I can feel, and I will get swallowed up by the riptide. I have got to constantly be looking at what's coming next, because if I don't, I will get lost and swallowed in the experience that I have in the present moment.
But do you push back a little bit, but do you think that like because you focus so much in the future that the present feels so chaotic and you're kind of like aversive to the present moment?
I can take time for the present moment. I'm better at taking time for the present moment in my personal life.
Mm-hmm.
In my work life, can't do it, because again, all I can see are the problems that are undone, the things that aren't fixed, the to-do list that is a year and a half long and constantly getting added to, and I'm never getting anything done. So if I sit in the present moment, what that means to me is I'm sitting in that current emotional experience of my life, of my work life, and I will get swallowed up and stay there. I have to have distal and proximal goals, like the ones that are quicker, a little bit easier to achieve, and the ones that are a little bit longer out. Otherwise, I will just stay on the hamster wheel forever and never have like the cortical connection to think outside of the stuck.
But I think there's also elements of like, okay, what can I control now and take care of now? And yes, there's a long list of to-dos and coming down the roads and all that type of stuff, but I can't worry about CARF right now for our accreditation, because that's not for like 6 months. I can only focus on kind of what I can do now, or I can't worry about whatever. And so what that means to me, can you kind of shrink what has to be done in the present? Yeah. If I get worried about, let's just take that CARF example. If I get stressed about CARF coming in like July, there's a flood of like Rolodex of things that happens in my brain. But then what I settle on is you still have like 3 policies that you need to finish for Derek so that he can get them in manuals. Like, do those things, check those off the list, because almost all of my stress in most areas of my life, but particularly my work life, come from not having things accomplished, from things being left undone. And so stress relief, confidence, a sense of competence, they all come from just getting things done, following through on the thing that I said that I was going to do, being true to my word, not making excuses, just getting to the other side of it. If I tell you I'm going to do it, I feel better about myself when I've done it. So having a list of things that are left undone creates an insane amount of stress for me, because I know that every single one of those undone tasks affects somebody and the way that they do their work, and then the way that that work impacts our clients, our community, our stakeholders, our staff, everybody. You have to have a realistic list. Yeah. To do in the present. Right. You can't have a list you can't create a list that's so vast that it's really impossible to kind of. But if I don't have the whole list, I can't then organize it. I'm a very concrete person. I'm crazy not board. Abstract. Yes, I have crazy boards, and if I don't have every single thing written down, I can't figure out how to prioritize. Like, there are times, even when things aren't really that stressful, and I have like an hour and a half, and I look at Kaylee and I'm like, what is the most high priority thing I have to do? Because I don't know. My brain codes priority as the thing that has occurred closest in time, not actually what is the most meaningful thing that I could accomplish on my list. So if I can't see it all, to think about it in terms of like, okay, I have to knock down this domino so that this one can fall, so that that thing then becomes easier. My brain doesn't do that automatically. Like, there is an extremely taxing process. Because you're just looking for things. You're just looking for things to come off the list. My brain does not know how to code priority. Does not know how to break down projects and tasks, big stuff. It's like I've never written a research paper not in one sitting. It doesn't matter how long it is, 5, 10, 20 pages. It doesn't matter how many sources. I decide, I sit down, and then I don't get up until it's done. Like, that's just kind of how my brain has always worked. And I've tried many, many times to try to change that about my brain,
but it just doesn't work that
it's a very
way.
strong pathway.
It doesn't work that way. And so instead of stressing myself out about the way that my brain works, like just lean into whatever your process is. My process is that I have to take a lot of time and energy to get a list together with everything that needs to be done so that I can objectively look and prioritize them in order of how they need to be done. Because no, I can't spend November of 2021 stressing about our CARF review in July of 2022. That makes 0% sense.
Right.
But there are things on my list that if I get them done, when I think about CARF, my plate is now empty when it comes to CARF. Like I have done everything that I can to prepare myself and the agency for CARF that's coming. So again, like I can't, everything gets done at the very last moment, which is why I have to give myself like deadlines and goals, really, because like what's a deadline when there's like not a professor yelling at you because like you turned your paper in late, you know? But there's a skill to knowing when to give yourself grace when you are trying to manage your life. And that to me, I don't make good decisions about when to give myself grace if I'm not taking care of myself like on a basic level. If I'm not drinking water and eating food and limiting my screen time and some kind of proactive exercise to regulate myself, I don't make good decisions about when to give myself grace because my nervous system is overwhelmed. So I constantly need grace. And then I just don't get anything done and it's a vicious cycle.
Well, I think it's evaluating what you're doing and without judgment.
Mm-hmm.
So if I kind of like make this list and there's 5 things on the list and I get 3, I gotta evaluate what I'm gonna do to get the other 2 done or whatever versus kind of, oh man, you suck because you only got 3 out of the 5 list, or oh, you're just such a bad worker or whatever. You're constantly kind of going through this process of what do I need to do to accomplish these goals? And then did I accomplish the goals? No. Okay, why not? What do I need to do differently to kind of get there? Or how do I restructure things so that I can accomplish it? I think that's the hardest part for a lot of people is to kind of the judgment that falls down on you when you don't kind of meet your expectations. And then are you setting an expectation that's realistic?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
So those are the things of kind of my goals, like to just kind of like, okay, whether it's in parenting or being, at work or providing therapy or whatever is easing up on the judgment.
Mm-hmm. And I think for me, when I think about myself, there's a balance between observing and evaluating myself without judgment while also still holding myself accountable.
Yeah, but
like there's a balance there, and I think sometimes
holding yourself accountable is different than judgment.
They get a little too enmeshed.
Right, because you're holding yourself accountable you're not holding yourself accountable to be, a good person. That right. Should already be there. It's like, okay, I didn't accomplish this, so I need to hold myself accountable to get it accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
But once you start kind of putting yourself down as a result of that, that's where it's so easy to just kind of fall down and not get back up.
Well, I feel like when we were looking at the staff surveys for this past year,
yeah,
there's always certain themes in those. And when we were sitting at the table as a group, kind of looking at them and talking about them, there was a certain point, I can't remember if it was in that meeting or if it was a little bit after, I can't remember, but at one point I just said, listen, like, yes, we did a lot of things really well. However, they aren't wrong for what they are pointing out that we could do better. And that for me is accountability. Accountability for me is if I objectively look at the situation, if I take the way that I feel about it out of it, mm-hmm. if I forget the reasoning behind what's happening, like, is there truth to what's in front of me? If there's truth to what's in front of me, is there something I can do about it? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, what is that? And what can be done that can be followed through on?
Right.
So that we're not continuing this perpetual cycle of like promising the moon and delivering a nightlight.
Well, and I think that happens where if in that situation we get the survey and we hear negative feedback, and so that negative feedback takes me right to a place of self-judgment of saying, oh, I'm not good or whatever. If I kind of look at it saying, okay, that's kind of where they're coming from, that's kind of how they feel, that's their experience.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta problem solve and figure out how I can help them have a different experience about, and so I think sometimes when I am more worried about judgment, I try to argue with their perspective, like argue why they're wrong.
Yeah.
Instead of just let me try to figure out where they're coming from and understand it, being curious about it, not judgmental, so that we can make good, healthy changes.
And that sometimes means me looking at my list of stuff and being like, these things would be wonderful, but they can't be on the list because them being on the list is unrealistic, unattainable, and it is what it is. Mm-hmm. Like there's disappointment when I have to take stuff off the list, but there's no judgment, at least me of myself. In a perfect world, if blah, 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 could we do this? Yeah, but that's not what life is, and that's not what we're dealing with right now. So this would be a great idea. However, it's not reasonable. It's not feasible. It's not something that I can ask of myself or the people around me. So I just have to drop it and focus on the things that I can have some control over.
Well, and sometimes if no one pushes back and gives us feedback, then you don't recognize that things are not working very well. Mm-hmm. So unless you have a system where people can kind of say, hey, this isn't working well, you're going to just keep going down this road doing the same thing you always have and never changing, and so there is definite value in rethinking, things that you're doing. Sometimes they run its course, sometimes they get stale, sometimes they're just flat out not effective. Mm-hmm. And you have to have a process where you can kind of evaluate that and do that.
I learn the most about myself when people point out kind of what their experience is of me, for better or for worse. And, I don't look at negative feedback about me or how I'm doing my job as an attack. I mean, there's always that like human moment of
if they're giving you that feedback in a way that is not an attack, like this
but
is.
Even if they do it in an attacking manner, like there's always the human moment of like, oh, that sucks cruddy to feel, because and then come all of like the I am statements, the really negative I am statements, but then that doesn't feel good. So then it becomes a you are, right. And you push it out. And once I get through that human process, hopefully with as little kind of like shrapnel to the other person as possible, then on the other side of that, when I have a moment of calm and reflection, it's okay, is there anything about what they said that is true? Because though I may not like the way that the message was delivered, and though I may not like the person who delivered it, is there something about what was just said that I could use to become better? Mm-hmm. Because if we only accepted feedback in packages that we thought were pretty and from people who we valued, none of us are going to grow. So getting negative feedback, especially with themes, is almost makes me excited, because I don't then have to guess about how I'm affecting other people. They've just told me. So the way that you were talking about, communication is always one that I think in an agency like ours is going to be a barrier to be overcome. You may be having a hard time with communication, but I have to play a part in that because I'm the one that's supposed to be communicating to you. Mm-hmm. So I can't control the way that you perceive or receive information, but I could maybe do something about the way that I deliver it to you. Mm-hmm. Do you prefer, and there's been some times over the past year that I've had to really take accountability and responsibility for the way that my communication was impacting other people. Right. And in the moment, it kind of sucked, But now on the other side, it just makes so much more sense. And I was feeding into my own chaos by the way that I was communicating with people that was completely unnecessary and not healthy for any of us. So on the other side of it, are we better off? Yeah. Is it a little bit more lonely and difficult sometimes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's not anybody else's responsibility. Like, that's my job. It's my job to handle myself and get what I need. But if I don't take care of the basics of who I am as a person by drinking water, practicing good sleep hygiene, eating food, any food at regular intervals, limiting my screen time, and then creating space for some balance in my life, like I never get to the other side. I never get to the other side where I can think creatively about how to solve a problem. It stays very it stays very external. I'm always pushing it onto somebody else and not letting it seep in and make me a better person. Because my nervous system is fried to start with. It can't take anything else. If I take care of myself, I feel like I become better almost always through like negativity, because I don't know, I think that's just okay, it's great, whatever, tell me I'm good at something, it's like, oh, okay, whatever.
Well, I think of I kind of wanted to kind of end on this a little bit, but I was thinking about like when we went through EMDR training, I can't remember if it was in the training or in the supervision, we started talking about how like you're not the same person you were yesterday or when you were 5 or 10, 15, that you're always changing because because we are our experiences. And so every single experience, like our experience right now is going to impact and shape who I am when I leave this room, just based on the information we talked about, the relational experience of having a conversation with you, the fact that I was totally not prepared for this coming in and having to do it. So that's, that kind of changes who you are. So I think about like going back to that judgment piece of like, we're always growing. Like our brain changes to our very last breath. So we're never the same person. We're always developing. So that should be a normal part of our process, that we are frequently looking at ourselves and seeing how can we be better? What can we do to change for the better, and also I think elements of what's working that I don't need to change, but can we be really honest and reflective about that, that I'm doing this, I think it's good, but it really isn't because I haven't like taken a step back, broadened the TV screen to look at it. So I think, I think if you can get into a mode of being comfortable with change, both with yourself and just in your life structure, because when I was hearing you talk about kind of your routine, part of me is like, okay, it's the same day over and over again. It's like, so there's elements of like, man, I'd like to like really like just change it up, and kind of switch it up just to throw off the monotony, and I think you gotta have to, like, if I can schedule that, or not schedule that, but if I can like do that, then I can also, because I think that doing the same thing over and over again oftentimes leads to just falling into those bad habits and not really keeping up on it. Like you get to automatic autopilot, and you end up falling back into those bad habits, those habits that create the unhealthiness.
Our brain has the ability to be neuroplastic, but we have to be using our brain in different ways for it to grow in different ways.
Right.
So if we're doing the same thing over and over again, we're strengthening those pathways, but we are neglecting and therefore losing access to other parts of our brain and other capabilities.
Well, the interesting, I do a lot of trainings, and I was preparing for a class, but one of the things I was reading about, kind of like our stress response, like if the brain takes in information, if it's not novel or extreme or whatever, it kind of, and it's not new, it just kind of doesn't really create memory from it.
Yeah.
So if we're just kind of going through that, we need to kind of do something that's novel or challenging or stretching to create new memory, to create change, because that's all we are, is just a collection of memories that kind of guides our functioning. So if we don't, everything just kind of gets filtered away, and it doesn't ever impact our system. So if we keep doing the same thing, we keep operating on autopilot, nothing changes because the brain doesn't really create new memory, create new experience, create new learning in it. And so sometimes you have to take a conscious approach to kind of try something different, to challenge you, to push yourself. And I think that's what we try to get our clients to do all the time, right? Like to take risks, healthy risks, and do something that pushes you.
Yeah.
So, all right. So last thing, what do you want to, or what's kind of your process goal that you want to accomplish? Like, we're talking about stress, and we're talking about like, what's your kind of, this is what I'm going to do to kind of feel better, deal with the stress in a way that's more effective?
The goal is to get back to a place where I'm proactively engaging my body in some kind of physical exercise 4 to 5 times a week. I'm still in like the drink water, put food in your body phase of that. So once I get pretty decent at that, next comes limiting screen time, which then opens up the time management to be able to do that.
Right.
But, if there is time in a day, or like Friday, I was like, you know what, it's still light outside and my meetings are done for the day. Like I could go home and just get in a run really quick and then just hop back on the computer at home. So I did that. Like those moments are kind of the immediate, like always kind of like scanning to see if I can get them.
Right.
But the goal is to eventually get back to a place where I'm proactively engaging in physical exercise 4 to 5 times a week.
Yeah, that's my goal my goal is to get back into physical health stuff. But I think my big goal is to be more proactive. So I think I'm more reactive to things, and practice what I'm preaching is I preach people to be proactive.
Yeah.
So that's where I need to be proactive. What am I going to do proactively each day? Like, what am I going to set up in my day to be healthy, to do something stress relieving? I'm kind of more of like, I just need to kind of create a routine where I can get to the gym or go downstairs in my basement and just work out. What's that time frame in my day that works out best? So that's been my biggest challenge and my easiest excuse. So I don't have time, or this is in the way. So I gotta pick something and stick to it. So, all right. I don't think we covered it all.
No.
So we probably need to come back and talk more about our stress, but thank you.
Yeah.